Introduction to Taoist priests helping me grow. In my spare time, I traveled to the world of cultivating immortals. After passing the year, I still had a low level of cultivation, so I chose to lie flat and enjoy myself. I was recruited by a common royal mansion to offer sacrifices. I never thought that although the golden finger was late, it arrived. Starting from the worship in the royal mansion, time flies. In my spare time, I read through 1,000 sales, suddenly looking back, I am already the eternal guest of the world. Chapter 1. Rotten Immortal Cultivators. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. You state, Changning County, Fuwan Mansion. The front hall. A group of people held their breath and gazed towards the center of the hall. Red flame divine palm. With just a low shout, a handsome young man in a blue shirt in the audience suddenly burst into flames with his palms red. A copper bell stood on the ground, and he gently pushed his palm upwards. Buzz. The copper bell is like tofu, with no pressure from the flame penetrating it and smoothly breaking a large hole. Then the remaining momentum did not diminish, and a firelight appeared inside the copper bell. The bell body began to turn red, and in a moment, half of it melted, causing copper water to flow all over the place. He has innate martial arts skills. He is a martial arts master. Everyone exclaimed in surprise, especially the martial artists in the field, who now had a deep reverence for the youth. Seeing everyone in a state of great surprise, I lifted my chin slightly and pretended to be a master in my spare time, but in fact, I secretly vomited in my heart. The spiritual energy in the mortal world is really rare. A fireball spell consumes only half of my mana. Poor me, a cultivator in the hall. I even feel a little proud because I intimidated a group of mortals. 3 years ago, leisure time traveled through and replaced the original body, with a cultivation level of 3 layers of by picking up and practicing qi. At first, leisure is exciting. This is a cultivation. It represents sword immortal, it represents heading towards the North Sea and Mu Songming, flying swords thousands of miles to take human heads later on. As I continued to practice, in my spare time, I gradually noticed some mistakes. The first great realm of cultivating immortals is the Qi cultivation realm, which consists of 9 levels. I have passed the age and am still stuck in the 3rd level of Qi cultivation. In the future, I will see a pitch-black sky. Although Qi cultivators are nourished by spiritual energy, their lifespan is only 1 or 20 years longer than that of ordinary people, living to the age of 100. If there is a mistake in the middle of cultivation, we will reach the limit in our 70s or 80s. Even if we suffer a secret injury in our martial arts, it is not impossible for us to be 50 or 60. If we encounter a demon cultivator who robs us, we will be gone. The more I ponder in my spare time, the more anxious I become. Since there is a dead end to cultivating immortality, why not lie flat and open up decisively? In my spare time, I choose to retire in the nearby secular world. The mortal realm refers to areas where spiritual energy is extremely scarce and cultivation resources are extremely scarce. If a cultivator stays here, not only will their cultivation progress not improve, but if they stay for a long time, their cultivation may also regress. Over time, if no cultivator is willing to stay, it becomes a territory with only ordinary people. Exhausting his meager savings in his spare time, he crossed the sea of death that separated the mortal world from the cultivation world and arrived at the state of Yu. He traveled all the way, passing by the fiefdom of King Fu, and happened to hear that the palace was recruiting offerings. King Fu was the legitimate younger brother of the Emperor of Yu and was granted the title of Changning County. Recently, he inexplicably offended a martial arts master and was assassinated by him when he broke into the palace late at night. The 3 masters of the palace suffered losses, and almost even King Fu was killed. In the end, all the members of the royal family fought to the death to protect and force the enemy to retreat, but Prince Fu was also seriously injured. Nowadays, the power of the prince's mansion is empty, and the Fu prince's mansion not only seeks help from the imperial court and experts, but also solicits and worships from the people with heavy funds. In my spare time, I immediately had a clue about my retirement plan. Finding a good employer and supporting elderly care. So he claimed to be the second-generation descendant of the fire god sect of the Hidden World sect, unveiled the recruitment list, and entered the royal palace, creating the current scene. Leisurely looking at the queen sitting in the hall, he arched his hand and said, "Carving insects with small tricks, you made a fool of himself." He did not reveal his identity as a cultivator, but disguised himself as an ordinary innate warrior. Spiritual energy is a transcendent seed, and in the mortal world, spiritual energy is scarce, but it does not mean it is lacking. So there are ordinary people with great perseverance who tap into the potential of qi and blood, refine true qi, become postnatal martial artists, and then use the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to quench their bodies, promoting them to become innate masters, similar to the path of cultivating immortals to refine their bodies. In the main seat of the hall, Princess Fu had a beautiful appearance, dressed in a light pink palace dress, with a plump figure. At this moment, she was also observing her spare time with a good appearance. People all pay attention to the appearance of their skin. And cultivators, nurtured by spiritual energy day and night, have their own beauty effect. As long as they are not born with deformities, there is almost no ugliness, and they can always match a delicate appearance. Master Yu is too humble. With just one palm, Master Yu is capable of serving as the heavenly level offering of the Fu Wang mansion, but I don't know what Master Yu wants. The cultivation of martial arts has reached the level of an innate master, who has initially gained the confidence of being a light power nobleman and a proud prince. Ordinary glory and wealth can no longer easily impress them. Yu studied hard for half his life and couldn't bear the loneliness of the mountain cultivators. He was born to seek wealth and prosperity. Today, he met the prince's mansion to recruit talented people, which was precisely fate. I stared at the beautiful face of the queen in my spare time, my gaze open and my expression calm. Yu is very fond of luxurious clothing and food, a beautiful woman in a fragrant car, and a luxurious enjoyment. Among them, she is particularly fond of beauty. I wonder if the queen may be as I wish. Or perhaps her idle words were too direct, causing the queen's cheeks to blush slightly. She covered her mouth with a light smile to conceal her composure. Yu Zuifeng is truly straightforward, but the most important thing that the royal family lacks is glory, wealth, and status. Since Yu Zuifeng is willing to serve the royal family, he naturally has everything he needs. Magnolia. The servant is here. From now on, you will be the person I offer sacrifices to. In the future, you must serve offerings well and not slack off. Yes, madam. I saw a petite girl walking out beside the princess, with a delicate and fair complexion. Although she was not as beautiful as the princess, she still exuded a youthful aura of a neighboring girl. Seeing Yu Xian looking at Yulan, the queen introduced herself. Yulan entered the palace 5 years ago and has been serving her by the side of this palace. Even the prince has not touched her finger. She is the most obedient girl around this palace, and I can give her orders for anything I have on weekdays in his spare time. Without making any excuses, he directly accepted the girl and thanked the queen. Empress is straightforward, and I will definitely live up to her expectations. I will do my best for the royal family in the future. The queen received the promise and immediately showed a smile, as if 100 flowers were in full bloom, causing Yu Xian to be stunned on the spot and mutter in her heart. Do I still have the heart of a thief? The queen didn't know her spare time was full of thieves, she just felt that with the addition of an innate master, the royal family would have more confidence. Yulan, take Yu Zuifeng to the second building of the Tianzi temple to rest. By the way, the palace is hosting a banquet tonight. Welcome Yu Zuifeng to join the palace. Please do not refuse. When I hear public funds for food and drink in my spare time, I have no choice but to do so. Please rest assured, madam. You will definitely attend the banquet on time. It's night. At the royal banquet, both guests and guests enjoyed themselves. The queen showed her face and left on the grounds of taking care of the prince. As the protagonist of the banquet, Wuxia received a lot of attention and took this opportunity to get to know many royal offerings, but all of them were prefecture-level offerings one level lower than him. The Wang mansion has two levels of worship, heaven and earth. The requirement for heavenly worship is very simple, it is a martial arts innate master who can fight. There are more standards for worshipping at the prefecture level, such as the highest level martial artists or those with unique skills such as hidden weapons, poison techniques, medical skills, tomb raiding, goo cultivation, and beast control. The royal family keeps them, maybe they will be useful someday. Leisure truly broadens one's horizons, secretly marveling at the diversity of human skills. After the dinner party. Offering Hall, Tianzi Building 2. I can't drink it, I really can't drink it. Leisurely covered in alcohol, pressed against the petite body of Yulan, muttered and stumbled towards the bedroom. Yulan struggled to carry her spare time to bed and sighed. Sir, you were just too talkative just now. How could anyone keep drinking when someone offered you a toast? At the dinner party, she waited on her leisure time throughout, and when she saw her interactions with others, she was extremely gentle. Even when she was drunk, she didn't hit or curse people, but liked to hold them and talk nonsense, which was somewhat cute. As he said in the daytime hall, she is particularly beautiful. All night, her hands were almost bald from being touched. But this is not a disadvantage. Now that she has been rewarded by the queen to be worshipped by you, she will become the worshipper in the future. The more her master loves her, the better her treatment will naturally be in the future. Sir, please rest well. If you have anything to do, just call me a servant. Yulan covered Wuxia with a blanket and was about to leave when she grabbed her with a big hand. Don't leave. Complete the task. In my spare time, my whole body is clear and comfortable, and I feel like I am completely released. Poor his character, he felt quite embarrassed the first time. He gave up a glimmer of hope for immortality and risked his life to cross the sea of death and come to the mortal world, starting a new life from today. Suddenly, his spiritual sense moved and he noticed a new wave of magic circulating within his body. What is this? I was stunned in my spare time. At the beginning of his journey, how could his golden finger, which he had called for half a day, be opened in this way? Nima, don't be too outrageous. I gasped heavily in my spare time, suppressing my excitement. In front of his field of vision, a green panel appeared. Name. Wuxia, cultivation. Practice Qi level 3, 28/30, Taoist couple. Magnolia, 1-to-1, at this moment, the leisurely gaze towards the magnolia is like looking at a rare treasure. She was already her own Taoist couple, and although she had no matchmaker's words or parental orders, this moment was more profound than any guarantee. The next morning. Excited all night, with little drowsiness, my spare time stared at the mosquito net on the bed. In front of him was a dazzling green panel, which made him certain that everything was not a dream. Name. Wuxia, cultivation. Cultivate Qi 4 layers, 1/50, Taoist couple. Magnolia, 1 out of 1, in the middle stage of Qi cultivation, one's spiritual awareness becomes subtle, allowing one to see oneself within. In my spare time, my spiritual consciousness explored the Dantian and found the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, where I saw that my magic power was abundant. Compared to yesterday, not only was my quality more pure, but my weight also increased by about 30%. He used the fireball technique from yesterday at most 3 times before, but now he can cast it at least 5 times with greater power. In addition, the hands and feet are lightweight, the body is light, and there is a slight improvement in speed and strength, which is roughly equivalent to the appearance of a martial artist after birth. But the means of cultivators are never limited to physical strength. Nowadays, he can be considered a down-to-earth mid-cultivation cultivator. Of course, he has self-awareness and belongs to the weaker group in the middle stage of Qi cultivation. In terms of cultivation methods, he practiced the innate chi cultivation technique in the world of cultivating immortals, which has no attribute bonuses. The only advantage is that it is moderate and peaceful. In the future, it is convenient to change cultivation methods, and theoretically, he can practice it all the way to the realm of building foundations. In terms of spiritual skills, apart from the small cloud rain technique for farming and watering, the small golden needle technique for deworming, and the small withered wood technique for weeding, his only attack spiritual skills are the fireball technique. As for magical tools and talismans, they are not something that a poor ghost can expect. However, Wuxia was very satisfied. He could use his cultivation techniques or something. To achieve advanced martial arts, one must return to the immortal realm and embark on an adventure, which may not necessarily be successful. Although he unintentionally awakened his golden finger, his spare time actually strengthened his determination to live in the mortal world. The arrogant demons and demons of the cultivation world roam the world, and our ancestor is capable of suppressing them for a lifetime. He is such a small shrimp that he cannot even bear the aftermath of their struggle. Staying in this small pond in the mortal world may seem small, but it's safe. Wuxia lightly pecked at the person in his arms, feeling drowsy gradually. He was carrying a beautiful dream and fell asleep like this. From this moment on, a spark suddenly appeared in his once lifeless life. Chapter 2. Indulging in Emotions and Emotions X Diligent Practice Square Root. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Half a month passed in a blink of an eye. In my spare time, I don't hear anything outside the window, and my heart is only busy with cultivation. Omitting 200,000 words during the process of cultivation, Tianzi Building 2, which is said to be a building, is actually a courtyard with facilities such as a courtyard, flower pavilion, and small pond. On this day, the general manager of the royal mansion rushed over. I saw several maids gathered at the entrance of the courtyard whispering, occasionally glancing at the courtyard, and then blushing slightly, covering their mouths and emitting a silver bell-like laughter. The manager recognized that these were all maids responsible for serving Building 2. Cough. He coughed lightly twice to remind everyone. A group of maids quickly fell silent and bowed to the manager. I have seen the steward. The manager's surname is Li, and he is an old eunuch in his 50s. His face is white and unnecessary, his body is chubby, and his face is round. At first glance, he is a kind-hearted person. Our family was ordered by the prince to invite you to offer sacrifices. Does he have time now? The maids looked at each other and hesitated for a while before one of them dared to say. Your Excellency, Yu Zuifeng has been staying in the room with Yulan Jie these days, and the maids don't know if he has time. Well, why don't you go and ask in person, Mr. Manager? I don't know anything, that's how you serve your benefactor. Manager Li shook his hand and brushed the dust, then walked forward. After only a few steps, he retreated back without a good airway. You lazy guys, be careful in the future and talk about your benefactor's private affairs behind your back. If your benefactor hears someone unhappy, you deserve to be beaten to death. Hurry up and get to work. Yes. The maids, knowing that the steward was well-intentioned, laughed and dispersed, leaving only a fragrant breeze. Manager Li shook his head helplessly, turned around and walked into the hospital, gently shouting towards the attic. Yufu, Yufu. Who is it? The window in the attic opened and saw a young man leaning out half of his body. He was casually wearing a coat, with a messy hairstyle, a slightly white complexion, black eyes, and a look of excessive indulgence. It is precisely the leisure time of hard cultivation. Seeing the person, General Manager Li was startled. Yu Zuifeng, what's wrong with you? When I was free, I pressed my back and pretended to be strong. I have been working hard recently, and I spent a little more time. Later, I will find Dr. Huang in the mansion to prescribe some medicine for me. It should be good to make up for it. Li Gonggang, are you here to see me? What's up? In half a month, he achieved an average of 5 cultivation points per day. Now, he not only successfully broke through the 5th level of qi cultivation, but also took a firm step towards it. It's just hard work, I dare not speak to anyone. He originally thought that the first one who couldn't hold on would be Yulan, but as he grew thinner and thinner, Yulan's face shone brightly and she became more and more energetic day by day. I feel that if I continue to practice like this, I will eventually develop a shadow. Therefore, even if Duke Li doesn't come, he plans to interrupt his cultivation. Watching one's own cultivation progress is certainly delightful, but the waste is the fundamental path and should not be excessively damaged. Practice should not be done too hastily. Manager Li regained his senses and remembered his job. The prince was delighted to hear that there was an additional heavenly level offering in the mansion, so he wanted to invite you to see him. May I know if you has time? The prince summoned me, how dare I refuse? Please wait a moment, Yulan, change my clothes for me. In my spare time, I closed the window and ordered from behind. About half an hour later. Wan Fu Hojai. Fu Wang lay on a grand tutor's chair, covered in a thin blanket. His face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were full of fatigue. However, he still forced himself to smile at Yu Xian and said, "After being injured, I often fell asleep. Today, my spirit finally improved, so I thought of inviting Yu Zuifeng to meet and speak." Yu Xian bowed with a bow and said politely, "The prince's kindness has made me anxious." King Fu asked, "Can I know why I was injured?" "I've heard a little about it," Yu Xian said, knowing that the main task had arrived. Sure enough, King Fu spoke earnestly and said, "The assassin who injured me has been found. The government has now dispatched people to surround me, but we still need a martial arts master to intervene to prevent his dog from jumping over the wall. I hope that Yu Zun can assist me with a helping hand." Yu Xian, however, looked puzzled and said, "Prince, I have heard that the thief is of high strength. The 3 major offerings of the royal mansion are still unstoppable, and he has lost 2 of them. Would it be a bit weak to rely solely on the next person? He only lived in the royal mansion for half a month and slept with a woman. What's the point of selling his life for?" Prince Fu explained, "Please rest assured that the assassin Chen Xiao, who relied on his sharp 5 poison palm, stormed the palace and suffered serious injuries against the 3 great masters and many guards in the palace. If it weren't for this, he would have been bothering me again long ago. I have been worshipped for the past, but it's just that the prince's mansion is in charge. Maybe there's no need to take action, and the government can solve it. Originally, it was to harvest the remaining blood of the human head." Yu Xian suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, but still pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "Since I am a worshipper of the royal family, it is also my duty to contribute to the royal family. I have agreed to this matter." King Fu clapped his hands and smiled, "I will not mistreat anyone who is willing to offer sacrifices. Someone here." As the words fell, a beautiful maid walked into the door, holding a tray with a stack of silver bills and some jewelry on it. "Here are thousands of taels of silver and some jewelry for others to worship and play with. Of course, if the offering is interested in lilies, they can also be taken away together." Yu Xian then looked at the front maid below. Her appearance was no less than that of Yulan, and her temperament was even more elegant than that of an imperial sister, with a pair of long legs. Unfortunately, he is currently in a time of sagehood, and no fairy or witch can arouse any interest in him. The prince's kindness, I will accept the silver and jewelry. As for this lily girl, I recently realized a sentence. Although a beautiful woman is good, she should not be greedy. She can only thank the prince for his kindness. Sleeping with her without any cultivation, and besides, I am now financially strapped, so there is no extra share for her." Leisurely, without looking askance, took the tray from the pale lily girl's hand and said goodbye. "At the time of departure, the prince instructed me to inform you, and you left first." King Fu smiled and said, "I am waiting for the good news to be enshrined." "Not long. The queen walked in outside and was greatly surprised to see Lily step down from her side. How could he confiscate it? King Fu shook his head and said, he said that although a beautiful woman is good, she should not be greedy. He refused, but instead accepted the silver and jewelry. The queen suddenly thought of something and lowered her head with a sneer. I probably know what the reason is. Oh! King Fu exclaimed in surprise, how could Xianxia be so quick-witted today? Isn't my concubine usually stupid? The princess glanced at the blessing king and said, I have just seen the magnolia once. She said that Yuzuefeng is very obsessed with her body, whipping her every day and taking her in half a month. As many as 80 or 90 times. At this moment, even the Buddha worshipped in the temple cannot match. As she spoke, she suddenly felt a little sour. Since she gave birth to Prince Fu at the age of 18, it has been 8 years now. Prince Fu has not slept with her as often as half a month, but rather has favored some lovers who are raised outside the mansion. Prince Fu seemed to understand the queen's gaze and couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed, so he had to abruptly change the topic. Has the court still not sent anyone over? Speaking of the main matter, the princess of Zhaoshuyuan.com put aside her small emotions and shook her head, saying, in theory, even if someone is not sent over after such a long time, we should still give an answer. Perhaps something unexpected happened midway. Prince Fu smiled bitterly and said, since my elder brother became addicted to immortal cultivation, the court has become increasingly neglected, and the people have also become chaotic. Those so-called martial arts heroes have become increasingly disobedient to discipline. If it were 10 years ago, how could anyone dare to attack the royal palace? Chen Xiao was actually a descendant of the Chen family back then, and I don't know where he learned the vicious 5 poison palm. I only wish that he hadn't been able to eradicate the root of the plant. Cough. Medicine. King Fu suddenly coughed and reached out to grab the medicine box next to him. The queen quickly stepped forward to help retrieve the medicine, only to see the prince vomit a ball of black blood. What's wrong with you, prince? Fu Wang took the pill and took it, his cough calmed down, but his face visibly worsened. I don't practice martial arts and have been exposed to alcohol, lust, and wealth on a daily basis. My body has long been in deficit. This time, I hit a 5 poison palm in the air, and the poison gas entered my body. If it weren't for the detoxification pill prepared by Dr. Huang, I would have died a long time ago. Prince, you will be fine. The princess and Prince Fu have been married for many years and cannot help but shed tears. Don't cry. Prince Fu wiped away the tears from the corners of the queen's eyes, but his tone inevitably carried a hint of melancholy. Dr. Huang said that as long as I persist in taking detoxification pills, although my body will become weaker in the future, I can form a balance with the toxins in my body. Within 3 to 5 years, nothing will happen. Just because Heng'er is still young, you need to worry more about the Wang mansion in the future. Upon hearing this, the queen tightly held the hand of King Fu and remembered the person who had broken into the palace that night, her eyes filled with a layer of sorrow. When will injustice be avenged? Chapter 3. 5 Poison Palm, but that's all. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Changning City, west of the city, Yunlai Inn. With the rapid sound of hooves, a large group of officers and soldiers appeared at the end of the street, merging the two sides. In no time, the entire street was surrounded and filled with water. Looking around, on the rooftops and under the streets, there were officers and soldiers dressed in uniforms, either wearing swords and shields, or carrying bows and arrows. A total of 800 people were elite soldiers urgently transferred from the city defense camp. On a tall building across the street from the inn, the chief constable of the Yamen, Zhou Bai, the general of the city defense camp, Wang Lang, and the leisure time representing the Wang mansion gathered together, just in time to see the situation of the Yunlai Inn across from them. Yuzuefeng, may I ask if the prince has any instructions? The speaker was Chief Constable Zhou Bai, with a heroic figure and a fierce temperament, who was also the overall commander of this arrest operation. It has been 2 days since King Fu summoned him. In his spare time, he went to find Dr. Huang, who was worshipped by the royal family, and prescribed several nourishing formulas. He ate them for several days in a row, and with the help of his magical power and self-restraint, his body recovered very quickly. At this moment, he had already regained 7 or 8 parts of his complexion. He picked up the tea cup and took a light sip, politely smiling. Mr. Zhou is the protagonist of today's event. When I came over, the prince instructed me not to make noise and seize the spotlight. This time, Mr. Zhou can take the lead. In short, whoever loves will go to the top. It's okay to pick up people's heads while watching dramas, but it's not enough to be the main force. Zhou Bai was not surprised. He did not expect the royal palace to offer sacrificial power. He then said to General Wang beside him, "General Wang, I'll leave it to you next. This is the main force behind the arrest." "Messenger, messenger." General Wang had a burly physique and spoke directly. He clenched his fists at the two and went downstairs to lead the troops. As a messenger waved his flag on the terrace, the soldiers on the street began to shrink their encirclement around the Yunlai Inn. At the same time, the constables and experts of the Wang mansion under Zhou Bai had already rushed into the inn. Less than half a cup of tea. There was a clamor of killing coming from inside the inn. Bang! The window on the second floor of the inn was knocked open by a dark shadow and fell heavily to the ground. That was a constable, with a sunken chest, a dark red face, and black blood stains on his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. He struggled in pain on the ground, but there was no movement. A black-robed man with long gray-white hair, about 30 years old, appeared at the broken window. He first looked around at the officers and soldiers, and then quickly locked his gaze on Zhou Bai and the others across from him. He snorted coldly and exhaled like thunder. "Zhou Bo, back then you were also a famous iron pen divine judge in the martial arts world, with a great reputation for chivalry. Now, how can you become a court hawk dog, losing face to the people of the martial arts world? How did you find me? If you want people to be unaware, you must do it yourself." Zhou Bai's expression was cold and stern, and he shouted loudly, "Chen Xiao, you are so bold that you dare to assassinate the prince, ignoring the court's laws and regulations. If you don't arrest him early, there will only be a dead end. Shoot arrows." With a command, the arrows rained down like rain, like a dark cloud covering the entire second floor of the inn, instantly turning the entire inn into a sieve. Seeing countless sharp arrows attacking, Chen Xiao laughed heartily and showed no fear. "Zhou Bai, do you think these trash can harm me?" The air in front of him suddenly shook, and a layer of black and red air cover spread all over his body. Arrows hit him like mud cows entering the sea, losing their power in the blink of an eye and falling to the ground one after another. Then he jumped into the crowd like a shell hitting the ground, and the aftermath alone made 5 or 6 officers and soldiers lose their combat power on the spot. "Whoever blocks me will die." Chen Xiao had a fierce temper, and in the blink of an eye, he pierced through the formation of the city defense camp and rushed out of a small street. Although there were 800 officers and soldiers, only a dozen or so people around him could attack him. With his strength, ordinary officers and soldiers are prone to injury and death when touched. Upstairs. Zhou Bai's face slightly changed and he said, "In the middle stage of congenital growth, does vigorous qi protect the body?" While leisurely drinking tea and watching movies on the side, there was also a slight movement in my spare time. My calf muscles were weak, and I could smell the danger. Although martial artists do not rely as heavily on spiritual energy as cultivators, it is still extremely difficult to break through the mid-term realm in places like the mortal world. And even martial artists in the mid-innate stage, who are just ordinary cultivators in the early stage of qi cultivation, should be taken seriously, as they may easily capsize. But now I am at the 5th level of qi cultivation. "Oh, it's okay then. So the body that had just tightened in my spare time lazily softened again. Yuzuefan, please act quickly and not let him out of the encirclement. This tusk has already broken through the mid-innate stage, and if he is allowed to escape, the consequences will be unimaginable. Zhou Bai looked at Yu Xian, his tone urgent. But he didn't want to have the posture to stand up in his spare time. Instead, he shook his head and said calmly. General Zhou, Chen Xiao is now in the middle stage of his innate life. He is arrogant and beyond my ability to resist, why not? At this moment, a cry of surprise came from their ears. Chief Constable, Yuzuefan, Chen Xiao has been stopped by General Wang. What? Both of them were surprised and turned their heads together to look down. I saw General Wang wearing heavy black armor, riding on a sturdy armored warhorse, holding a black iron spear as thick as an egg. With one swift move, he was able to withstand Chen Xiao's charge. Behind him were 7 or 8 heavily armored cavalry. Kill! Horses hissed and people howled, and the cavalry advanced together. Although there were only a few people, it seemed like a mountain was pressing down, and even the air was frozen in it. Chen Zhao's eyes turned red and he was covered in blood. When he saw the horses rushing towards him, he didn't dodge and risked his life to face them. In an instant, his palms were wrapped in black air, and his figure almost pulled out of the air. In the moment of fighting with the long spear, he narrowly avoided the front of the gun and hit the warhorse with a palm on his side. Bang, bang, bang. A muffled sound echoed one after another. General Wang only had time to block his palm with his horizontal spear, and his entire body flew backwards from his horse. The warhorse under his crotch screamed in pain, and black blood and tears flowed from the naked eyes on his armor. The leading warhorse fell heavily to the ground, lying horizontally in the center of the street. The charge of the heavy cavalry behind him also slowed down, and then the formation became chaotic. If Chen Xiao takes advantage of the situation and rushes forward again, it will be overwhelming. Charging on straight streets certainly has an unstoppable momentum, but once the momentum is cut off, defeat is equally rapid. However, in the midst of lightning and fire, the fierce heavy cavalry team lost its combat power. But obviously, Chen Zhao's consumption is also very high. Faced with another round of concentrated shooting by the rooftop archers who seized the opportunity, his protective body energy was constantly on the rise and fall. Several bows and arrows smoothly penetrated the protective body energy and penetrated straight into his back. Fortunately, he was immediately caught by his muscles, only to be injured to the skin and flesh. Seeking death. Chen Xiao pulled out the arrow, blood splattered and he threw it back, causing the archers on the roof to fall. He took his momentum to the next level. In front of him was a bloody street stretching several tens of meters, and behind him were fallen heavy armored horses, scattered weapons, and howling soldiers. This scene sets him off as if he were an invincible demon king. The psychological defense line of the soldiers in the city defense camp is approaching collapse, knowing that the other party is at the end of their strength, they dare not take another step forward. Waste. Chen Xiao spat out a mouthful of blood and a cold smile on his face, about to turn around and leave. Don't leave. I heard a sharp whistle in the air, and an iron pen came as an air raid, but General Zhou and his captors surrounded me again. Chen Zhao's face showed a fierce expression, and his palm condensed black energy, patting towards Zhou Bai. You can't keep me. Zhou Bai remained silent, holding a judge's pen and forming a formation with his subordinates to intercept the opponent's path. If you look closely, you can see a layer of blue true qi covering the judge's pen, which can block Chen Zhao's poisonous true qi erosion. This week, the general catcher is also an innate warrior. Zhou Bai, you're a good person. I don't want to kill you. If you stop me again, don't blame me for being impolite. Chen Xiao confronted Zhou Bai while threatening. He sensed the rapid loss of true qi and physical strength, and knew that if he didn't leave, he might have to stay here completely. If you surrender, this constable can guarantee to save your life. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Zhou Bai did not intend to appreciate it. Seeking death. Chen Zhao's expression completely cooled down, and his moves suddenly changed. His palms were crystal clear like jade, and the air was filled with gusts of fishy wind. 5 Poison Palm. Zhou Bai's eyebrows suddenly cooled, and he dared not slack off. The judge's pen pointed at a point where the green true qi condensed, and he also used his proud innate martial arts skills. The divine pen adds the finishing touch. The two collided together. Zhou Bai felt a pain in his fingers, and then his palms, wrists, and arms seemed to be gnawed by thousands of ants. The excruciating pain rushed deep into his soul, making him unable to help but cry out. Ah! The judge's pen came out of his hand, and half of his body became paralyzed. He collapsed to the sky, and black energy appeared on his face. And Chen Zhao also didn't feel well. The sharpness of the judge's pen left a long cut in his chest, with deep scars that almost injured his internal organs. If it weren't for my injury not fully recovering. Chen Zhao covered his wound, feeling a deep hatred in his heart. As he was about to leave, he felt a hot sensation behind him and a warning in his mind. Protect your body with vigorous qi. Red Flame Divine Palm. Sting. Chen Zhao felt that his protective energy was easily torn apart like paper, which was not only due to his lack of true energy in his body, but also enough to demonstrate the strength of the incoming enemy. In the next moment, a blazing flame climbed onto his back, making him suddenly taste the harshest punishment in the world and losing all consciousness of resistance. In a daze, Chen Zhao could only vaguely see a green shirt slowly approaching him, along with a commanding voice. Oh, 5 Poison Palm, that's all. Grass Nima. You have the ability to fight alone. Chen Zhao was furious and rushed to his heart, causing his injuries to flare up and he fainted on the spot. Chapter 4. Unexpected Gains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Zhou Bo woke up. The streets are clearing debris, and the officers and soldiers of the city defense camp are carrying the bodies of their colleagues covered in white cloth. Their footsteps are slow, and everyone has a gloomy face. There is not only a smell of blood in the air, but also a smell of sadness. Sitting at a corner of the street, in front of him were several constables under his command, all guarding him. I didn't die. The memories before the coma gradually returned. He was hit by Chen Zhao's 5 Poison Palm, which was poisonous and consumed too much of his true energy to resist. In the end, he collapsed in grief and anger. That's right, it's just sadness and anger. If the royal family were willing to contribute, the two of them would work together. With Chen Zhao's current state, he would definitely not be able to escape. Now that Chen Zhao is in his mid-congenital stage, once he recovers from his injuries, there will never be a second chance as good as today. Zhou Bai was secretly angry with his spare time for being greedy and afraid of death, and the more he thought about it, the more angry he became. Someone. What about the remaining offerings in the royal mansion? But they escaped. Are you looking for me, Mr. Zhou? A voice came faintly from behind him. Zhou Bai's hair stood on end, and he turned his head like a ghost to see a pale face. His hair was wet with sweat on his temples, pressing against his forehead, looking very tired. Yu Zuifan. Why are you here? Yu Xian said innocently, Mr. Zhou, why can't I be here? At least I did my best to save your life just now. Why don't you even have a good expression? Can you save me? The poison gas on my body. Zhou Bo only realized later that his paralyzed body had now returned to normal, and all the poison gas was being forced into the palm of his right hand, being bound by a powerful force. When he regains his true qi, it only takes some time to force these poisonous gases out of the body. Just now, it was Yu Gongfeng who used his martial arts to heal his injuries, which caused his face to be so tired. Zhou Bai's face turned green and white. After hesitating for a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "I am deeply grateful that you saved my life, but Zhou will still truthfully report to the prince about your fear of war today. No matter how the prince punished him afterwards, Zhou is willing to bear the responsibility together with you. Shifeng, punish us." "Why punish us?" Yu Xian secretly suppressed a smile, but on the surface, he pretended to be puzzled and said, "And when did I get scared? Didn't I catch someone? The prince should reward us." "Ah." Zhou Bai's expression was bewildered, and then his gaze followed Yu Xian's finger. "I saw Xianxia, who was covered in bruises and half of his body turned into charcoal. He was unconscious, tied up and thrown aside." Zhou Bai only felt a surge of blood rushing towards his forehead, and his face quickly became congested and turned red. They not only saved themselves, but also caught the person. And not only did I not give the other person a good face just now, but I also wanted to report it to the prince. This is simply... It's so embarrassing. He just wants to find a crack in the ground to get in at this moment. Seeing Zhou Bai's appearance, he secretly pinched his thigh flesh in his spare time to prevent himself from laughing out loud. "Mr. Zhou, since you're awake, I can rest assured. Besides, Xianxia is the assassin who assassinated the prince. I have to take him to the prince's mansion and wait for the prince to handle him. Do you agree, Mr. Zhou?" At this moment, Zhou Bai wanted to take Xianxia to the yamen for interrogation, but he couldn't speak anymore, so he nodded awkwardly. "It should be. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, for accommodating me." In his spare time, he clenched his fists and thanked Xianxia. He stood up and walked towards Xianxia, picking up someone and leaving. The reason why he stayed to act in this scene is because he saw Zhou Bai as a good person. If someone like him could give a hand, he would give it to him, and it would be beneficial. Another is the thought of having to retire in the Fu Wang mansion. The reputation of not being able to rise to the brink of battle today has spread, so there is no need to mess around in the future. Now Xianxia has been caught by him, Zhou Bai has received his favor, and the royal family can handle it. The yamen still needs to thank him. And all he paid was a weakened version of Fireball. It's true that win thoroughly. Zhou Bo vaguely felt something was wrong, but the kindness of saving his life was greater than heaven. Even if he knew that he had found a bargain in his spare time, he had to acknowledge it by pinching his nose. Moreover, Changning County was originally a fiefdom of Prince Fu, and it is reasonable for the Wang mansion to cross the government office and become a law enforcement officer. Compile a list of the deceased and injured brothers, and I will personally write a report. In addition, no one is allowed to move their family's pension, and I will personally deliver it. Zhou Bai pondered for a moment, then stood up with the help of his subordinates, not forgetting to explain the way. The cost paid today to arrest Xianxia is not insignificant. Fortunately, the Fuwang mansion has already made a promise that they will bear the expenses and compensation. Otherwise, next time I want my brothers to work hard, without any money, his personality charm will be in vain. Yun Lian. Chen Xiaoyu woke up slowly. His injuries had been preliminarily bandaged, but he still felt a tearing pain all over his body. He wanted to use his martial arts skills to heal his injuries, but found himself lying limp and unable to lift himself. It's useless. This is a soft muscle powder specially developed by the court's Ministry of Justice to control martial arts experts. Even if a natural warrior eats it, they won't be able to use it for 3 days and 3 nights. A faint voice came. Chen Xiao turned his head and found himself lying on the bed in the guest room, with a scholar in a green shirt sitting at the table in front of him, slowly drinking tea. It's you. Chen Xiao remembered that this bastard was the last one to ambush him, and even mocked his 5 poison palm for being nothing more than that. What kind of hero is a sneak attack from behind? Yu Xian was very surprised and said, "When did I say I was a hero?" In Chen Zhao's incredulous expression, he took out 2 white crystals the size of quail eggs, angular and sharp, which were the common currency in the cultivation world. Spirit stones. White is a lower-grade spirit stone. Stop talking nonsense, where did you get this thing from? Touching corpses is a good habit. It was from Chen Zhao's body that he touched the spirit stone, and in his spare time, he did not immediately bring it back to the royal palace for interrogation, but prepared to extract it first. He used to farm for the great cultivator in the cultivation world, earning only 3 lower-grade spiritual stones a year, and usually only willing to use spiritual sand 1 level lower than the spiritual stone. However, this also explains why Qin Shao was able to break through to the mid-innate stage in the mundane world, where spiritual energy is scarce. With enough spiritual stones, the impact of thin spiritual energy is not as significant. The thought of Qin Shao wasting countless spiritual stones to cultivate martial arts made his heart ache in his spare time. This is all his. It seems that you also know Lingxia. Qin Shao sneered, his eyes filled with sarcasm at zhaoshuyuan.com. But do you think I can say it? Or do you try to beg me, maybe I can tell you when I'm in a good mood? In my spare time, I didn't get angry, but I just sighed and said, actually, I don't like to threaten others with age and weakness. It makes me look very unworthy. But if you don't cooperate, I won't be able to do anything, bring people in. The door opened and 2 palace guards escorted a girl in. You guys go out. In his spare time, he held back the guards and pointed at the girl, saying, with your martial arts skills, if you want to leave Changning City, no one can stop you, but you haven't left, is it for her? The city gate has long been under martial law, and you still have injuries. It's not easy to leave with a weak girl. You are very smart and want to lure away the officers and soldiers alone, pretending to be a guest in an inn and trying to get out. Unfortunately, you don't understand the thoughts of the upper class. They would rather kill 3,000 by mistake than misplace one. Speaking of which, you have to thank me for saving her life. The girl was about 18 or 19 years old, wearing a plain white long dress, with gentle eyebrows and eyes. She looked at Qin Shao, who was seriously injured on the bed, and tears fell silently. Seeing the girl being arrested, Qin Shao was emotional and shouted, you have the ability to come towards me. Bullying a girl is not a man. Yu Xin walked slowly to the girl and gently lifted her chin, revealing her pear blossom face with rain. You shouldn't provoke me, because I'm not happy anymore. It's only her who will get hurt. Qin Xiaomu's canthus was about to crack, and even breathing became difficult. Let her go. I said yes, let her go. Yu Xian smiled slightly and let go of the girl, saying, have a pleasant cooperation. Chapter 5. Secrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In 15 minutes. In my spare time, I dug out a small wooden box under a big tree in the backyard of the inn. The most dangerous place is the safest place. No one expected Qin Shao to put all his wealth in an inn. Opening the wooden box in my spare time, there are 5 gold bars and 2 handwritten ancient books inside. A cultivation technique called Changchun Gong, which can prolong one's life after being practiced for a long time, is a low-level technique in the world of cultivation, just like his innate qi cultivation technique. There is also a book called Poison Classic, which is a lifelong study of poison by a certain cultivator. I'm too greedy. Looking at the things in the box in my spare time, I didn't feel too disappointed. As he expected, Qin Shao achieved his current success by obtaining the relics of a certain cultivator who had been enthroned. However, most cultivators who can infiltrate the mortal world and become mere beings are not doing well in the cultivation world. It would be great if they could leave something behind. If he hadn't awakened his golden finger, he wouldn't have been as good as someone else. It would be great if he could have a diary to pass down in 100 years, and he still wanted spirit stones and farts to eat. He casually flipped through the Poison Classic and found that it was filled with introductions to various toxins and some methods of poisoning. Several of these poisons can even have an effect on cultivators. Qin Zhao's 5 poison palm was awakened from this Poison Classic. He took a different approach by extracting the toxicity of the 5 poisons and incorporating it into his true qi, transforming himself into a poisonous person. Although it caused damage to his longevity, it also amazed his combat ability. Ordinary innate warriors who fought with him for a moment would unknowingly be invaded by poisonous gas. As for the enmity between Xianxia and the Fu Wang mansion, Xianxia did not conceal it. 13 years ago, the Chen family angered King Fu and was brutally exterminated for plotting rebellion. Xianxia escaped by chance, fell off a cliff, and accidentally entered the cave where a certain cultivator was sitting. He obtained 2 secret books, 8 inferior spirit stones, and even learned about the existence of the cultivation world through the last stroke left by the cultivator. Xianxia thought he could become a legendary cultivator. But even with the help of spirit stones, he spent 2.5 years diligently practicing Changchun Gong, but still had little effect. If you continue to practice, you may not be able to break through the qi cultivation realm even if you use up all the spirit stones. He still has a big grudge to avenge, so he dare not gamble on this possibility. So Xianxia resolutely switched to practicing family martial arts. Probably the foundation of Changchun Gong and Lingshi was laid before, and his martial arts cultivation progressed rapidly. In just 5 years, he used Lingshi to guide the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into his body, becoming an innate master. After breaking through the previous day, he practiced in the martial arts world for several years, and based on the Poison Classic, he realized his innate martial arts skill. 5 poison palm, and then wanted to come back for revenge. Then came the later story. The girl is Chen Zhao's younger sister. Chen Zhao's assassination attempt failed. Before escaping, he went to the Chen family's former ruins to pay his respects and coincidentally met his sister who had heard that King Fu had been seriously injured by the assassination and came here to pay respects to his ancestors. Originally, my younger sister was replaced with her own child by an old servant from the Chen family. Brother and sister reunited after a long separation, reluctant to part ways. Coupled with Chen Zhao's strong military prowess, he underestimated the strength of Prince Fu's mansion, which led to the current scene. After listening in leisure time, my heart remained calm. Chen Zhao really escaped today, maybe it was the rise of the protagonist. Unfortunately, he had to become a supporting role. Fu Wang Fu. Chen Zhao's siblings knelt down in humiliation in front of Prince Fu, looking disheveled. At this moment, there was no trace of the chaotic fighting on the long street and the invincible aura of the Demon King. Leisurely sitting aside, watching coldly. Seemingly leisurely drinking tea, in reality, it is a subtle warning and serves as a warning. Although he threw a fireball spell himself, even the innate warrior had to melt on the spot. But my own mana is limited, so I can only throw a few fireball spells. When encountering Chen Zhao's scene today, with his meager spiritual reserves, after his mana was exhausted, it was highly likely that he would have to kneel. If the other party has 2 more innate warriors to assist from the side thinking of that scene, Yu Xian suddenly felt a chill on his back and made up his mind to continue keeping a low profile. Perhaps the reason why those low-level cultivators are unwilling to come to the mortal world needs to be added, which is that if they are killed by a group of ordinary people, they will definitely die with their eyes closed. Fortunately, in the later stage of qi cultivation, spiritual awareness can be detached from the body to resist objects, and then one can sacrifice and refine magical tools. With the power of magical tools, one can protect oneself and be initially not afraid of group attacks. He has the help of the Taoist couple Yulan. Even if he takes good care of his body, he can achieve an average of 1 cultivation point per day. At most, he can break through the later stage of qi cultivation in just half a year. Where do magic tools come from? Fall into the troubles of happiness in leisure time. On the other side. Chen Zhao, did you ever think about today when you assassinated me that day, said the blessed king, his face turning pale with anger. Chen Zhao lowered his head and didn't say anything. At this point, everything he said was nothing more than the howling of a defeated dog, as the previous worshipper you had already demonstrated to him. Even if I say a few heartwarming words, what can I do? If I'm not afraid of death, what can I do to anger them? In the end, only my sister gets hurt. Someone, put him in the dungeon and keep him under strict supervision. No one is allowed to approach without the king's command. King Fu waved his hand and ordered. Although he really wants to kill Xianxia, he still needs Xianxia to relieve the poison on his body. Dr. Huang's detoxification pill can only be suppressed and cannot be eradicated, and the ultimate antidote still requires a person to tie the bell. Don't be fooled by his broad-mindedness in front of the queen, but if he can survive, who wants to die? Before Xianxia was suppressed, he suddenly struggled and shouted to his spare time. Yu Zuifeng, don't forget what you promised me. Otherwise, even if I were a ghost, I wouldn't let you go. Oh, I wonder why Yu Gongfeng agreed to this assassin. King Fu looked at Yu Xian with a hint of depth in his gaze. Now that Xianxia is practicing the Dharma, his biggest threat is gone. In his spare time, this innate master is not as important to him as before. When I was free, I also knew that I could not avoid the eyeliner of King Fu when I interrogated Xianxia. Now I was quite frank. You took some things from him and promised to keep his little sister's life. So he wanted to ask the prince to give me another face. King Fu fell into silence. After a moment, he stared at the girl kneeling on the ground and said calmly. If Yu Zuifeng can persuade Xianxia to remove the poison gas from my body, I can give you this face. Yu Xian hesitated for a moment and didn't say he could give it a try. Instead, he looked embarrassed and said, now Xianxia is relying on this trump card to save his life. I'm afraid he would rather die than submit. You can only say he will do his best. A smile appeared on King Fu's face as he nodded and said, just do your best. I'm not a domineering person either. Thank you very much for your understanding, Prince. I'm leaving now. Please leave in your spare time. He didn't ask about the reward for capturing Xianxia this time, nor did Prince Fu mention it. This can be considered as a tacit understanding between the two, which means that he has secretly interrogated Xianxia and exposed everything he obtained from Xianxia this time. After another while, King Fu suddenly asked in a faint voice, what did I receive from Xianxia? Seeing Xianxia kneeling on the ground, his sister looked up with a cold and stern expression, not a hint of a weak girl. Report to the prince, there are 2 spirit stones, 2 secret books of cultivators, and 5 gold bars. It seems that Xianxia really treats you like his younger sister. King Fu smiled and looked into the distance, with a hint of memories on his face. Back then, leaving behind a leisurely move didn't really work. Since Yu Zuifeng wanted to protect you, you can go follow him from now on, Chen Yi. Here. Previously unknown, the girl named Chen Yi now respectfully steps down. There are not so many coincidences in this world. The most wrong thing Xianxia did was to reveal his identity while assassinating King Fu. He didn't expect that King Fu would keep the old servant of the Chen family and trick Chen Yi into playing the role of a younger sister of the Chen family to wait at the Chen family ruins. This gave King Fu the time to calmly arrange and deploy troops. Participating in it during leisure time is just a coincidence. Even if he had no spare time, Xianxia couldn't escape the chess games set by King Fu today. However, it is also a legacy left by cultivators. Fu Wang coughed lightly twice, his eyes showing longing, and murmured softly. What kind of world is that? The cultivation of immortals is not a big secret for the royal family, and there is no absolute barrier between the cultivation of immortals and the secular world. When the legitimate bloodline of the royal family of Yu was young, they would be tested for qualifications by experts, and the outstanding bloodline would be sent to the cultivation world for cultivation. Zhaoshuyuan.com. Once one's cultivation is successful, they can repay the royal family. Other dynasties in the mortal world are like this, relying on the cultivation family in the cultivation world to have a continuous imperial fortune. Otherwise, ordinary emperors would not be able to resist the various methods of cultivators, who would have planned to seize the throne and caused harm to their lives. After all, no matter how little mosquito meat is, it is also meat, and so are the resources in the mortal world. Perhaps the Jindan Immortal doesn't like it, but cultivators who practice qi and build foundations are not willing to accept it. When King Fu was young, he was also tested for qualifications and was not suitable for cultivation, so he stayed in the secular world and became a leisurely prince. Now his brother who ascended to the great treasure should be similar to him, because even princes who want to cultivate cannot become emperors, otherwise they will use the power of the whole country to pave the way for their own cultivation, which is not in line with the interests of the immortal cultivation family behind the royal family. But his imperial brother somehow convinced the imperial supervisory immortal master and started practicing with great fanfare. In the eyes of King Fu, this is the path to chaos in the country, and the chaos in the state of Yu is proof of it. The leisure time after leaving naturally knows these secrets. After crossing over, he started farming alone. The surrounding circle is so large, where would one know the involvement of the secular dynasty and the cultivation family behind it? He heard that cultivators could become masters in the mortal world, so he immediately came running around. Fortunately, his second son was a person with a stable and prominent character. Without relying on his identity as a cultivator, he did not know his own surname and regarded ordinary people like pigs and dogs. Otherwise, perhaps new soil can be added to the grave now. Returning to the leisure time of building two in Tianzi, he once again embarked on his own master's corrupt life. Yulan, show me your talent. Chapter 6. Corrupt Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed since Yu Gongfeng bravely captured the assassin. Today. Tianzi Building 2, 2nd floor hall. Leisurely lying on the Grand Tutor's chair, holding a yellow skin wine gourd in his hand, occasionally taking a sip. The gourd contains the nourishing medicinal wine that Dr. Huang prepared for him, called the 10 Complete Great Tonifying Wine. The name is very vulgar, but it is very effective, and it has a certain effect on him as a cultivator. I don't know if it's due to the addition of honey in the medicinal herbs, which makes it a bit sweet after tasting. There are many complicated matters in the Wang mansion, but there are almost no matters that require a heavenly level offering. So the spare time is particularly idle. He also enjoys this leisure very much. The dream of contemporary working people is to provide free food and shelter, not work for nothing, and even divide the house and wife. In my ears came the melodious music of the qin, and beautiful women sang and danced in front of me. The dancing magnolia is a typical Eastern classical beauty, petite and delicate, with delicate and three-dimensional facial features. Especially now, which is her most youthful and beautiful age, allows her charm to be fully utilized. Leisure time cannot help but shout novelty. Although he and Yulan would openly meet each other every day, he still had an impulse to see what kind of beautiful ketone body was hidden under that dance dress. He quickly took 2 more sips of medicinal wine. It seems that he needs to work hard to cultivate again today. As his idle thoughts moved, his vision revealed his achievements in 1 month of cultivation. Name: Yu Xian, cultivation. Practice Qi 6 layers, 11/130, Taoist couple. Magnolia, 1 out of 1, in just 1 month, he surprisingly broke through another level and reached the 6th level of Qi cultivation, only 1 step away from the later stage of Qi cultivation. In the later stage of Qi cultivation, among the lower-level cultivators in the cultivation world, he can definitely be called a small expert, capable of serving as a deacon and managing important affairs in some small and medium-sized cultivation families. He used to be a late-stage cultivator when he was in charge of farming. If he doesn't do anything every day, he just waits for the annual harvest of the spiritual field to collect rent from these spiritual farmers. They still have to beg and flatter him, afraid that if he doesn't pay attention, they will underestimate the harvest of their own spiritual field. I didn't envy him to death at that time. Perhaps it was this envy that made him underestimate his determination to strive for cultivation. Not only did I fail to hold on to my daily bottom line, but I also took the initiative to practice twice or even 3 times a day. After each practice, I deeply hate my lack of restraint in my spare time. But practicing such things. Sometimes a try can lead to uncontrollable outbursts. Seeing my own cultivation progress bit by bit, I feel relieved in my spare time and feel that my efforts have not been wasted. So I had to ask Dr. Huang to continue increasing the dosage of the medicine. The 1,000 taels of silver notes he received from the prince quickly turned into a complete tonic of 1 gourd and 1 gourd. It means relying on the top-notch power of the royal family, otherwise it would be difficult to collect just those medicinal herbs. After a single dance. "Sir, how are you dancing?" Yulan jumped into her spare arms with joy, no longer feeling the usual restraint, just like a mature domestic cat that can freely brush its fur. Since the owner obtained her promissory note from the royal family a few days ago to restore her freedom, she seems to have lost her freedom instead. Just this time, she was willing. Even if she knew that the master was more infatuated with her own body, she was willing to accept it and tried her best to show him the beauty of the girl's body. For someone like her, whose fate is like a duckweed, even a little bit of love is worth 100 times and 1,000 times in return. Not to mention that her grandfather is still so handsome and gentle. He never treated her as a lowly servant, and sometimes he could tolerate some of her stubbornness and recklessness. So she became more and more like a child, eager to receive more favor. As for the task entrusted to her by the queen to monitor her leisure time, I'm sorry, she only has one master now. It's okay, I didn't even look carefully. Seeing Yulan pouting in dissatisfaction, she gave a playful smile in her spare time, scraped her sparkling nose bridge, and leaned in her ear, her voice adding a hint of temptation. "Because I was just thinking about how to eat you in one bite." Yulan's ears suddenly turned red, and she immediately turned from anger to joy, diving straight into her leisure arms with a charming and silly appearance. "Master, you'll be teasing me. Xiaoyi, do you want to come together?" Yu Xian was hooked up and suddenly turned his head to ask Chen Yi, who had just played the piano accompaniment, to the side. Since he went to persuade Chen Xiao to detoxify Prince Fu, and Chen Xiao only agreed to suppress the toxicity for Prince Fu. The younger sister of Chen Xiao came to his courtyard and said there was no place to leave in the mansion. Since he agreed to let Chen Xiao take care of her, he entrusted her to him. Leisure doesn't care, and having multiple beautiful women in front of you is also good for the eyes. And sometimes it's possible to change the flavor. Thanks to the broken-mouthed maid at the entrance, everyone in the Wang mansion now knows that Yu Gongfeng is a famous lustful evil spirit. Even if he enters his attic, he will not be innocent. How could someone else suffer this injustice, so he must ruin this innocence? No, no. Chen Yi stood up in panic upon hearing the words and quickly walked towards the door. She was not ready yet. Just before leaving, she suddenly turned around and glanced at the scene of Lang Qingqiai on the Grand Tutor's chair, feeling a bit envious. As her identity, I don't know when she could easily and comfortably lie in the arms of another person and act coquettishly. Or perhaps never. Remember to take a stroll for a while before you go out, don't come back until it's time, otherwise I'll assume you're together by default. From behind came the cynical laughter of Yuzue, causing Chen Yi to stumble and walk even faster. Ha! The laughter spread far away, making Chen Yi blush uncontrollably. He gently rubbed the smooth milk-like skin of Magnolia with his palm, and suddenly thought of an important question. If Yulan also steps into cultivation, will the cultivation points she provides for herself increase? Although his cultivation progress is rapid now, as his realm improves, the speed of improvement begins to slow down. Practicing Qi at the 6th level requires over 100 cultivation points, and at the 9th level, how much should it be? If he is lucky enough to step into the realm of foundation building. In the situation where there is only one Taoist priest, Yulan, and there is currently no way to increase the number of Taoist priests, increasing Yulan's cultivation may have unexpected effects. So in his spare time, he pulled up his scattered coat on the ground and wrapped it around his waist, swaggering into the next bedroom to retrieve the changchun gong that he regarded as a chicken rib. He has been fishing with this thing in his room for almost a month now. Zhaozuiyuan.com. However, both Yulan and Chen Yi seem to have little interest in it. Yulan is fond of not thinking about Shu, while Chen Yi did not receive the task, so he naturally made no effort. Sir, what is this? Changchun gong. Is it a Taoist way of nourishing oneself? Yulan was carefully cultivated by the queen, not only proficient in singing and dancing, but also able to read and read without hesitation. In her spare time, she followed her words and said, "It's about it. You should practice this technique well. If you achieve any results, I will reward you heavily." Yulan casually threw down the secret script, disregarding her current state of exhaustion. Her soft wrist gently rested on her idle neck, with a lazy expression on her face. "I am very satisfied now and don't want any rewards. However, I will definitely listen to my master and practice well." "Really?" Yu Xian smiled and threw down the bait. "If I say you have achieved success in your cultivation, what if I marry you?" Yulan's body suddenly stiffened and her voice trembled unconsciously. "Sir, what did you just say?" Leisurely caressing her soft long hair behind her, her tone calm, but like a demon opening a soul contract towards a drowning person. "If you do, I will marry you and enter my side room." Without mentioning a legitimate wife, Yulan wouldn't believe it. Yulan's eyes suddenly turned red as she grabbed the secret recipe of changchun gong, as if she had taken her own life and then swore. "Master, I will definitely make something out of it." What an old person, still crying. In her spare time, she wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and made a beautiful promise. "Just give it a try, it's okay if it doesn't work out. Since you're with me, I won't leave you behind." Chapter 7. Difficult to Fill Desires. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the saying goes, even the most delicious food can get greasy every day. Yu Xian once thought this was a high-level Versailles, an absurd talk. Mad, a hungry man knows not how hungry he is. If the goddess were in his arms, he would never be tired of it for the rest of his life. But now, he can only say, "Tired." Just like a beloved toy, I couldn't put it down when I first bought it, but soon I threw it in the corner to eat dust and didn't notice it for a long time. The pure desire without the blessing of love comes with fierceness and surging, and goes silently. In order to gain fame as soon as possible, Yulan has started the mode of asceticism. Although still obedient to him, even to compensate him, but her energy was ultimately limited, and after being separated by a large part of her cultivation, it was difficult for her to constantly explore and change her mind every day, as before, to give him temptation and freshness. This is not a good phenomenon. Yulan is currently the only designated Taoist priest for him. His sensory perception of magnolia determines the quality of double cultivation. He began to search for solutions to the problem and actively reduced his daily contact with Yulan under the pretext of focusing on cultivation, preserving some freshness in each other. But human desire is like a boulder rolling down from a high mountain. Once it begins, it cannot be stopped. Leisure has been satisfied physically, but the threshold for spiritual desires has been raised. Once unsatisfied, one will think of obtaining from elsewhere rather than self-restraining. Because his relationship with Yulan is not equal, when the cost of a person's mistake is zero, his betrayal becomes reasonable. Just as Chen Yi stretched his claws towards her in his spare time and saw the flickering tears in her eyes, he suddenly woke up. I almost became a puppet of desire. Of course, he doesn't have much guilt about sleeping with Chen Yi, as he goes to bed early and late. But he does not allow desire to make him lose his rationality and due judgment. So after more than 2 months of absurd living, in his spare time, he walked out of the royal mansion and looked out at the bustling world outside. He began to try to find something that could bring him joy and emotion. Changning County has a superior geographical environment with numerous water systems converging, among which the most famous is undoubtedly the Zhangjiang River. There is a tributary of the Zhangjiang River called Changning River in Changning City. Changning River section. A canopies rode past. At the stern of the boat, a boatman wearing a bamboo hat paddles with a pole, and under the canopy, there is a scholar in a blue shirt and a cold and beautiful maid. It's Yuxian and Chen Yi. Leisurely leaning against the window of the boat, I saw the vast river with rippling waves, and the natural world was within me. My body and mind were cleansed, and I couldn't help but sigh. Being trapped in a cage for a long time, returning to nature, and going out for a stroll during leisure time is truly beneficial for physical and mental health. The original troubles also go with the wind. Boatman, please slow down a bit. I want to go fishing now. Okay, Grandpa. The boatman answered loudly, slowed down his movements, and let the river slowly move forward with the small boat. The bow deck. In my spare time, I moved out a chair and sat down, threw out the fishing rod, and watched the fishing line hang into the water. The float swayed with the current, and my heart slowly calmed down. Do you want to come together? Yu Xian handed Chen Yi a fishing rod. Chen Yi silently took it, his eyes fixed on the water, afraid to look at his leisure time. Sorry, I thought I would eat you at an ambiguous time instead of rudely occupying you. My leisurely gaze fell on the distant white mist on the water surface, my voice ethereal, like the distant mist that could dissipate at any moment. If you have any requests, you can bring them up and treat them as a small compensation for my recklessness this time. Chen Yi couldn't help but tighten her heart and shook her head expressionlessly, saying, Since I have arrived at your yard, I am already your person. You are just taking what belongs to you, and you don't owe me anything. She was mentally prepared for the prince's request to approach her leisure time. In addition, she is handsome, powerful, and humorous in her spare time. It is lucky for her to serve him instead of other sisters who serve those officials who are fat or older than her grandfather. But what she can't accept is that she hasn't been contacted in her spare time since the first time. Clearly, his needs are so great. Chen Yi gritted her teeth secretly, sulking. Is she inferior to Yulan? Always ask me to do something, just satisfy my hypocritical conscience. With a faint smile, Yu Xian said with a hint of self-deprecation. And I advise you to seize the opportunity, because my conscience is often lost and I don't know when it will happen again. Upon hearing this, Chen Yi's eyes indeed struggled. For her, this may be an opportunity, but it could also be a test. Okay for a while. She saw a hint of determination in her eyes and said to Yu Xian with utmost seriousness. I want to practice, just like Magnolia. Only by becoming a legendary cultivator can she possibly obtain the freedom she desires. After a moment of confusion, Yu Xian said in surprise, I thought you would beg me to help save your brother. Leisure words flashed through Chen Yi's mind like lightning, and her face turned pale with despair in her eyes. He found out. Just as she wanted to explain something, she was interrupted by a seemingly casual wave from her spare time. But that's also good, otherwise I would really be conflicted about whether to go back on my word. After all, I'm quite comfortable staying in the royal mansion now. After returning to the mansion, you can practice Changchun Gong with Yulan, but I won't give you too much help, you can only rely on yourself. Chen Yi bit her lips lightly and nodded silently. I know. Since you have accepted my compensation, you can't be cold-faced with me anymore. Come on, smile. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Yu Xian grabbed Chen Yi's fragrant shoulder and sat down on his lap, his mouth flowery and his hands dishonestly moving downwards. Although experiments have shown that practicing dual cultivation with non-Taoist partners does not bring him cultivation points, it can bring him happiness. Nowadays, his interest in Magnolia has decreased, and his cultivation has greatly increased. With the help of Dr. Huang's secret recipe, he is no longer the empty young master who was once shy in his pocket. Adding another Chen Yi is not a problem. Chen Yi felt as if he could feel the warmth of his big hands through his clothes, his face blushing with embarrassment, and he silently resisted. Don't be here. Be good, come closer, I want to touch your heart. With one hand holding my sister and the other not idle, I picked up my fishing rod and a bright red carp jumped onto the river surface. Come on up, you. Boatman, do you have a stove? I want to eat grilled fish. Yu Xian shouted to the rear. Some gentleman. The boatman is a discerning person. When he saw a guest picking up his sister and didn't have empty hands, he immediately came from behind the boat to serve him. He unhooked the big carp and threw it into the fishing basket tied to the side of the boat, while also asking. Grandpa, the small grilled fish is not bad. Would you like the small one to be grilled for you now? It seems that I have a good taste today and I am about to taste the craftsmanship of a boatman. Leisurely carefree, she hugged the girl sitting in his arms like a cat and responded with a smile. But it seems that his luck has run out for the first time. In the next half hour, he only caught a few unknown small river fish, and then became uninterested. Coincidentally, the boatman grilled the fish. He shared half of the fish with Chen Yi, and the taste was quite good, mainly fresh enough, with a hint of sweet taste in the fish. So he ran out of enthusiasm and returned. Chapter 8. Someone wants to make friends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since the day of fishing on the cruise ship, I often take Beauty with me in my spare time and occasionally have a trip with 3 people. Then, in my spare time, I suddenly understood the money-burning behavior of those couples in their past lives who had to go out and open a house on holidays and didn't go back home. This is taste. It's easy to get tired of facing the same face in the same environment. If freshness is something that cannot be changed, why not try changing the environment? Perhaps there will be wonderful discoveries. Anyway, in his spare time, he felt that his cultivation motivation suddenly came up, and his cultivation level was steadily improving. But soon he discovered a very serious problem in his spare time. He ran out of money. As is well known, playing is a very expensive activity, especially when accompanied by women and special programs are added. 200 taels of silver per month in the royal household is more than enough for a bachelor, but it is not enough for a man with a female family. But in my spare time, I didn't complain about the lack of silver given by the royal family. The Wang mansion divides the house and wife, providing both food and housing. He doesn't need to work normally and earns 200 taels of money every month. When asked to take action, he will also receive a large subsidy. Speaking of the Chen Shao incident, the royal family approached him twice, both of which involved killing and exterminating the family. They gave him a lot of silver and additional spoils of war. But I find it troublesome in my spare time, and I am also worried that if I encounter a hidden old Een who exposes my identity as a cultivator, I will be rejected. I am determined that if it is not absolutely necessary, I will definitely go for nothing. The royal family did not force him on this side. After all, there is a portion of the heavenly level offerings placed there, and there is still enough silver for the royal family to support a martial arts master of 200 taels per month. Just don't think about extra benefits or anything else. The Wang mansion is not a fool either. You can have glory, wealth, and status, but you also have to work hard. But I don't want to work, I just want to go for free. Where does the money come from? I feel very annoyed in my spare time. Fu Wang Mansion is dedicated to the third courtyard with the courtesy name of Yuendi. Unlike the single door and courtyard in the attic of the Tianzi building, the houses worshipped at the prefecture level are all quadrangle courtyards, with each person assigned a room. However, most of the offerings have their own properties and houses, which means they are named in the royal palace and contribute when needed. But there are also some people who will stay in the royal mansion for a long time. For example, Dr. Huang, who is proficient in medical skills. The reason why he became a worshipper in the royal mansion is very simple, because there are enough medical books for him to study here, and there are also various difficult and complicated patients for him to choose from. The most important thing is that even if it cannot be cured, no one dares to trouble him. Because he was covered by a prince. But at this moment, someone happened to be bothering him. Have you run out of silver? Yu Xian's gaze turned cold as he stared at Dr. Huang, who was wiping his sweat across from him. That's the hard-earned money that you obtained after braving thorns and fighting against evil enemies for 300 rounds. Can you tell me you've used it all? Is it because you is usually too easy to talk, making people feel that you is weak and deceptive? The house leaks, but it rains continuously at night. He was still considering where to make money to take care of his sister over there, but Dr. Huang actually said that the medicinal herbs for his perfect tonic wine had been cut off. 1,000 taels of silver banknotes were surprisingly used up in less than 2 months. Is that broken medicinal wine? It's his waste gas station. Uncle and aunt can't bear it. Today, if Dr. Huang doesn't give him a satisfactory explanation, he will just make a high-profile move and start robbing the rich to help the poor. I heard that those who become doctors are quite wealthy. The little old man will never dare to deceive you, Shifeng. Dr. Huang's real name is Huang Yu. He is in his 50s and has a thin figure with a goatee that is about inches long. At this moment, he waved his hands repeatedly and quickly pulled out a list from behind the bookshelf, placing it in front of his spare time. He looked aggrieved and said, "Every medication offered by you has a detailed record, and the little old man didn't even charge a penny for manual labor. I'm just offering you, the amount of medication used in that area is really too large. And all the medicinal herbs used are precious items. Although there is a lot of silver, it is not enough to sustain consumption in my spare time." I took over the list and scanned it at a glance. When he saw the precious medicinal herbs that were often worth tens of taels of silver and coins, as well as the 100-year-old wild ginseng, his face gradually calmed down. The medicinal herbs and prices on the list are very clear, and can be found by comparing them with other pharmacies outside. Dr. Huang will not make such a basic mistake. Of course, the main reason is that the medicinal wine prepared by Dr. Huang is indeed effective. Otherwise, even if a century-old elixir is used on the list, he would have to make him spit it out 10 times and 100 times more. I was wrong about you. Thinking of the troubles of silver, I unconsciously touched the spiritual stone in the wallet around my waist. The preciousness of spirit stones in the mortal world goes without saying. Especially for those warriors who are stuck at the peak of the acquired world, perhaps adding an extra spiritual stone can help them attract qi into their bodies, promote their innate abilities, and even a daughter is willing to exchange it. However, spirit stones can be exchanged for silver, but silver cannot be exchanged back for spirit stones. Since Chen Shao obtained these 2 spirit stones, Yu Xian has not been willing to use them. One is that his cultivation does not require spiritual stones much, and the other is also as a trump card. In case of any unexpected situation where one's mana is depleted and they cannot afford to take spiritual pills, they can quickly recover through spiritual stones. But the 10 complete tonics is equally important, as it relates to his cultivation and double happiness, and it cannot be stopped. It is easy to transition from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to transition from luxury to frugality. I've been spending more lately, and it's really hard to hurt myself. Why don't you take out a spirit stone first and hold it against it? I am very conflicted in my spare time. Dr. Huang seemed to have noticed the embarrassment of his spare time and suddenly spoke up, asking, "Is it a difference in silver for you to offer?" Yu Xin glanced expressionlessly at Dr. Huang. Mad, how dare the old boy make a mockery? I'm almost as good as silver, can't you tell? Swept by the leisurely gaze, Dr. Huang couldn't help but feel a chill from behind. He smiled bitterly and quickly explained. Don't misunderstand me, Yu Zuifeng. I suddenly remembered that a few medicinal herb merchants approached me not long ago and said they wanted to get to know him and make friends with him. But I was worried about disturbing the offering, so I refused. As far as I know, they have always been very generous with their friend's leisure. Eyes suddenly lit up, and his mouth pretended to blame. Huang Lao, this is your fault. You has always been approachable and enjoys making friends the most. By the way, please explain in detail how they make friends at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Upon hearing Yu Xian politely call himself Huang Lao, Dr. Huang almost shaved off his goatee, which made his face look too natural. Previously, Dr. Huang was worried that his spare time would be of a noble nature. After all, I have been acting too seriously in my spare time these past few months, and surprisingly, I have been playing with a few women in the palace. What brothels, gambling houses, brothels, flower boats, taverns, and horse farms, that's not even going. Make it impossible for others to chance encounter him. Dr. Huang, due to his medical research requiring medicinal herbs and various experimental materials, often interacts with various forces outside the Wang mansion. Some of the major medicinal herb merchants made it difficult for him to get away with it, so he had to agree to help with matchmaking. However, he did not rashly disturb his leisure time, but deliberately waited for today's opportunity. Upon hearing this, Dr. Huang pondered for a moment and said more subtly, making friends is all about eating together, chatting, and giving you some small gifts as a gift. When I heard it, I was very dissatisfied and my expression was very obvious. A small gift. Is Yu's portion very small? Rude. How crude. Dr. Huang cursed inwardly and smiled bitterly, so he decided to speak more frankly. No small, no small. If they don't offer a gift of a few hundred taels for their first meeting, the little old man won't spare them. Hearing that there were over 1,000 taels of silver collected, I felt comfortable in my spare time. He nodded solemnly and said, it seems that they are also sincere in making this friend with me. You will give Huang Lao face and go see them. Of course, gifts are just a matter of meeting, and if you ask him to do something after receiving the gift, it would be another price. Chapter 9. As a person, I'm just addicted to alcohol and sex. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At night. By the Changning River, the lights are brightly lit. Unlike the wide river channel where fishing takes place before leisure time. This section of the river that runs through Changning City is much narrower, and there are many houses and buildings on both sides of the river, which is the essence of Changning River. Painted boats and flower boats, flowing houses, wine shops and tea houses on the shore, the noisy voices are even more lively than in the daytime. The place where the medicinal herb merchant invites guests is a medium-sized painted boat on the river, which is an industry of the beautiful brothels in the city, and the people who can serve on the boat are all top-notch Qing waiters. Therefore, if you want to charter a boat for a night, you won't be able to get down without 500 taels of silver. Of course, both the ship and the people are packed together. When I heard that the asking price was so expensive in my spare time, my first reaction was heartache, and I thought it would be better to discount the silver directly to him. But soon he slapped himself. Mad, I really can't eat fine bran like a mountain pig. What do you want silver for? Isn't it just to enjoy it well? Now that I've saved some intermediate steps, just enjoy it directly. Moreover, he is still an experienced driver, so the program he arranges is definitely not bad. What he wants to do is to be as happy as he wants. After some psychological construction, I quickly found my identity in positioning as a customer who indulges in prostitution. At the entrance of the painted boat banquet hall, an old man led a middle-aged man here to welcome the leisure time and Dr. Huang aboard the ship. Old Sun Hong, the head of the Sun family pharmacy, has met Master Yu. It's better to meet than to be famous. Master Yu not only has strong strength, but also is born so handsome and elegant. If it weren't for seeing him with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe that there are such immortal figures in the world. The elderly leader bowed and flattered me, making me blush. With a reserved smile, Yu Xian exclaimed, "The old gentleman has a keen eye. The first time we met, he even looked at you very much." The old man's smiling face stiffened, and his gaze turned to the middleman, Dr. Huang. Has Master Yu always been so shameless? Dr. Huang silently lowered his head. Well, yes. Fortunately, the old man had been floating in the sea of people for many years, and had already remained calm and continued his conversation without leaving a trace. I heard that Master Yu is fond of singing and dancing beauties. Tonight, I specially invited the colorful butterfly girl from Lishio Pavilion to perform a dance for Master Yu. I also asked Master Yu to give me more guidance later. Yu Xian was very low-key. I dare not say anything, let's learn together. Master Yu is really humble. Please come this way. The old man invited his spare time to take a seat in the hall and then clapped his hands. Just behind the screen, there was a clang sound, and a pipa suddenly sounded, as if a stone from a mountain stream had fallen into a spring. Then came the sound of qin, guzheng, eru, and a crisp sound similar to hitting jade. The music of the path interweaves, mixed yet not chaotic, as if stepping into a dripping mountain stream. Silence fell in the field. At the entrance of the hall, the pearl curtain was lifted and a naked jade foot stepped in. Looking up, under the orange light, there were a pair of flawless calves, as smooth as jade, even the pores were so subtle that they seemed invisible. Further up, there is a moon-white light veil, thin and opaque, with a silky texture, adorned with stars and sand, shining under the candlelight. That is a woman with a veil over her face, like moonlight. She walked lightly, like a young girl stepping in spring, with the wind blowing on her face and ribbons fluttering behind her. The music behind the screen suddenly became cheerful. Four companions danced in unison. A few people are like a group of butterflies clustering around, shuttling and dancing among the flowers, step by step, bright and not enchanting. The clothes that were originally deliberately exposed, but the innocent romance of a young girl jumped out of them. They seem not to be dancing for a group of men, but playing and frolicking in the mountains, releasing the nature of young girls, with a clean and pure taste. Leisure goes from being careless at the beginning to being focused on nothing. Yulan dancing for him was a simple and direct seduction, and he just wanted to take off her clothes. Seeing the colorful butterfly girls dance, he had an impulse to dress them and protect their beautiful purity. Excellent dance can move people with scenery. At the end of the song, the dance is over. The colorful butterfly girl took off her veil and revealed a charming face, bowing to everyone on the stage. My concubine sacrificed herself to shame. The dull crowd finally came to their senses. Okay. Leisurely clapping and applauding, he felt that even if this dance was enough, the other half would certainly be the welcome gift that the old man had not yet given. Other people applauded when they saw their spare time, giving face. It seems that Master Yu really likes the dance of Lady Kaidai. Lady Kaidai, Master Yu is also a great figure in this field. If you don't communicate well or become your confidants, maybe you can achieve some good stories in the future. Sun Hong gestured with his gaze, and the colorful butterfly girl sat down next to Yu Xian. When Kaidai sat down, he immediately smelled a faint fragrance in his spare time, and couldn't help but take a few sniffs. Otherwise, home flowers don't have the fragrance of wild flowers. Master Yu, I offer you a toast to the colorful butterfly of my family. Kaidai poured herself a glass of wine and then drank it all in one gulp, or if she drank too quickly, she choked and blushed her cheeks, making her look adorable. Leisurely looking at the colorful butterfly, with a calm expression and gentle gaze. Miss Kaidai, your dance is very beautiful and you are also beautiful. I really like it. Thank you very much for Master Yu's praise, Kaidai lowered her head and smiled lightly, then suddenly lifted her head in shock, her face turning red. I saw a big hand inexplicably holding onto her waist, and the originally safe distance between the two was now almost close. Miss Butterfly, Yu's liking has always been very direct. Yu Xian leaned over and exhaled hot air that hit Katie's face, making her body extremely stiff, but it made Yu Xian burst into laughter. Sun Hong's eyes lit up with joy when he saw Yu Xian being close to the colorful butterfly. As Dr. Huang said, Master Yu, who is greedy for flowers and lustful, chose a beautiful woman to give to him in the book garden www.zhaozhuyuan.com, which was exactly what he liked. It's not in vain that he spent an extra 200 taels of silver to name a butterfly to accompany him. So when the wine was drunk and the years were hot, Sun Hong raised his glass and said, Master Yu, it is my honor to come to the banquet today. I have finished this glass. After drinking his wine, he continued, I heard from Dr. Huang that you need to purchase medicinal herbs, Master Yu. I happen to have some inventory in my pharmacy. Today, I will borrow flowers to offer to Buddha and give them to Master Yu. Lift it up. As soon as the words fell, 2 servants wearing melon skin hats walked in carrying a large wooden box. Opening the box, there are various types of brocade boxes inside. Opening them again reveals the medicinal herbs inside, all of which are nourishing herbs such as ginseng, huangjing, and angelica. In my spare time, I saw with sharp eyes one of the small brocade boxes, which actually contained a stack of 50 taels of silver bills. Judging from its thickness, it was at least over 1,000 taels. Adding this box of medicinal herbs, the value of 3,000 to 4,000 taels is not a problem. If we add today's hospitality, we'll have to add several hundred taels more. Such a great deal of effort, far beyond the boundaries of meeting gifts, is it just to make friends with oneself. I don't know Sun Hong's purpose in my spare time, but it doesn't hinder him from accepting the gift. Anyway, there's no reason to spit it out after eating it into his mouth. He's alone, without any relatives or connections, and he's not afraid of revenge. I dare not refuse the gift from the elderly. Mr. Sun has a sincere heart, and I am extremely grateful. I will accept this gift. In his spare time, he remained motionless and secretly used his magic, transforming into a rough hand. He grabbed a large wooden box weighing about 100 pounds from the air and fell behind him with a clang. This sound was like hitting everyone's hearts. For a moment, the whole room fell silent. Chapter 10. If the task cannot be completed, it is because the money added is not enough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hiss. Dr. Huang, who was sitting beside him for a long time in the Wang mansion, was a knowledgeable person. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but take a cold breath and asked in surprise. This is the transformation of true qi, capturing objects from afar. Master Yu has broken through the mid-innate stage. Leisurely smiled quietly, as if all of this was insignificant. It's still a bit short, but it's not far either. Nowadays, he is only a few months away from the later stage of qi cultivation, disguised as a mid-innate martial arts master, which is reasonable. The key is that the price of making friends in the early and middle stages of congenital diseases can be different, so make friends feel that it's worth it. Sun Hong, who has been sitting steadily on the fishing platform, is indeed a bit restless. What is the strength of a mid-innate martial arts master? Previously, Chen Xiao had already demonstrated firsthand, bloodthirsty on the long street, defeating the heavy cavalry team head-on with one enemy in 100. If it weren't for the appearance of Lao Lu, he would have already left gracefully. And that was still in his injured condition. Innate nature is already the pinnacle of ordinary life, and further advancement is even rarer. The Sun family medicine has been traveling south and north for many years, making friends with various schools of thought and understanding the value of the mid-innate period. There are many sects in the Yu Kingdom martial arts world, and the innate grandmaster is the core of the major sections. In the middle of the innate period, he is an ancestor of a sect. If there can be innate late-stage warriors appearing, it is enough to unify the martial arts world and call oneself the leader of the martial arts alliance. Sun Hongzhen remained calm and flattered with a smile, saying, with Master Yu's talent, breaking through is just a matter of course. When the time comes, I will prepare another generous gift to congratulate Master Yu. Yu Xian raised his glass to express his gratitude and said, as per Mr. Sun's good words, I will definitely have another 300 drinks with Mr. Sunday. It doesn't matter whether people come or not, the main thing is that generous gifts must come. So there was another round of pushing and changing cups. During this period, Sun Hong repeatedly hesitated to speak, and in his spare time, he only ignored it. Since he didn't say anything, there was no need for him to cause trouble. He and the colorful butterfly girl beside him drank one cup at a time, getting closer and closer together. After seeing Yuxian Xiaolu, Katie's slight resistance to Yuxian's rudeness had long dissipated. After all, Master Yu is good-looking and has such strong strength that even the head of the Sun family pharmacy demands of him. If she can have a one-night bond with him, she may become her own talisman in the future and even elevate her own value. In her profession, she eats young food. It's a pity that this fate was paid in advance. However, it doesn't matter. As long as you take good care of the first time, the second time, and the third time, there will be no charge. The effect will still be the same when the two people fall asleep. So Kai Dai quickly got drunk. She fell into Yuxian's arms drunkenly, and soon fell into a deep sleep on Yuxian's lap, with an empty door wide open and a look of being picked by the emperor. In his spare time, when he bent down, he could see a large, smooth and snow-white area. He couldn't help but feel a bit of anger in his stomach, and his fingers gently slid over the delicate face of the butterfly. Suddenly, he spoke up. Mr. Sun, Yu is a bit overwhelmed with alcohol and wants to rest. The other girls are so proactive. If he doesn't take some practical actions again, he will make himself unable to do it. After hesitating for a while, Sun Hong saw that if he didn't speak up again, he was afraid that today's silver would be wasted, so he quickly stopped his spare time. Master Yu, please wait a moment. In fact, I am asking Master to come today because I have something presumptuous to ask for. I exhaled a bit of alcohol in my spare time, and my face seemed a bit drunk. He waved his hand and said with great pride. Mr. Sun, you and I are like old friends at first sight. Friends naturally need to help each other when they have something to do. If you have anything to do, just speak up. If you can help, he will never refuse. Seeing his spare time looking drunk, Sun Hong seized the opportunity and hurriedly said. A few days ago, our Sun family pharmacy was accidentally involved in a military arms case, which resulted in a large ship of medicinal materials from the pharmacy coming from the north being detained in the port. Nowadays, all aspects of the joints have been cleared, but there is still one Mr. Zhou who believes that our drug trafficking suspicion has not been thoroughly investigated, so he is unwilling to order release for a long time. I have heard that Master Yu and General Zhou are close friends in life and death. I would like to ask Master Yu to say a few good words to General Zhou. Old Decay and other members of the pharmacy can stay in Changning City to cooperate with General Zhou's investigation, just to let our medicinal herbs be released first. Yu Xian was really confused this time and asked, I have a life and death relationship with General Zhou, how come I don't know? He only met Zhou Bo once, how could he become a lifelong friend? But when Sun Hong saw Yu Xian's expression of wanting to evade, he cursed him inwardly for being insatiable, but forced a smile on his face and said. Who wouldn't know that the assassins who assassinated the prince that day were General Zhou and Master Yu, who went through life and death and captured them together? Mr. Zhou has said more than once outside that Master Yu is the great hero. If it weren't for Master Yu's actions, the assassin would have run away long ago, and it was Master Yu who saved his life. If Master Yu is willing to help us say a few words, it would be better than others saying hundreds or even thousands of words in my spare time. I remembered the scene where I acted and saved people. I didn't expect that General Zhou was still a particular person. Not only did he promote himself, but he also shared the credit and reputation with him. As far as he learned afterwards, Mr. Zhou is known for his selfless and impartial nature. He is known for his lack of oil and salt, and even his superiors refuse to give him face. Unfortunately, Zhou Bai is powerful and highly respected. He is the sea calming needle of the Yamen, and even the Prince of Fu wants to give him some face. No wonder the big shopkeeper of the Sun family pharmacy approached him. Perhaps everyone else had turned a blind eye, so this life-saving benefactor might have given him some face. But after a moment of silence, Yu sighed and said, "I just happened to be able to save Brother Zhou. I had no intention of being greedy for credit, and I never expected Brother Zhou to take the initiative to take this credit for me. If Brother Zhou gives me face today and allows you to pass it privately, will he give face to someone else again tomorrow? How should he handle himself then? Since Brother Zhou treats me with sincerity, how can I tarnish his reputation? Mr. Sun, as long as you cooperate with Brother Zhou's investigation, he will never intentionally make things difficult for you. Instead of pleading with me, it's better to prove your innocence as soon as possible. If it's an ordinary matter, this friendship will also be used, and it should be discounted." But what shopkeeper's son just said was about an arms case. Ordnance is ammunition, and ammunition is trouble. There is no need to get yourself involved in trouble for a few thousand taels of silver. In my spare time, I picked up the colorful butterfly girl and prepared to celebrate the spring night. Since someone else has arrived, the silver needs to be collected and the girl needs to sleep, otherwise it would be in vain. The main focus is on being shameless. Wait a minute. Sun Hong called out to Yu Xian, who was about to turn around, and his voice seemed to squeeze out from between his teeth. 10,000 taels. As long as Master Yu can let our pharmacy ship leave the port within 3 days, I am willing to offer another 10,000 taels of silver as a token of gratitude to Master Yu. In his spare time, he felt the drunken butterfly girl in his arms tremble, and he stopped. 10,000 taels. Hee, it seems that Mr. Sun is not as innocent as you said. Sun Hong's face turned pale, and he didn't speak. He just calmly looked at his leisure time, as if he must give him an answer. But what does it have to do with me? Who would be struggling with money? Yu Xian smiled slightly and said, "I will personally come forward with this matter, but I cannot guarantee that General Zhou will give me face. If it doesn't work out, I will also take half of it. According to the fact that he can only pay 200 taels for free in a month at the Fu Wang mansion, 10,000 taels is 50 months. Even if there is any trouble involved in the future, he can run away without losing money. And when trouble really comes, with his cultivation at that time, the so-called trouble probably won't be considered trouble. No matter how you calculate, you won't lose." Sun Hong finally breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Yu Xian, bowing his hand and thanking him. "I am deeply grateful that Master Yu can come forward. Even if it is not possible, I will not blame you." "Okay." Yu Xian laughed and said, "Mr. Sun is grand, so I'll go give it a try. It's late at night, you went to sleep first." Not long after leaving in his spare time, Dr. Huang quickly bowed and bid farewell. Unlike spending his leisure time staying overnight in a picturesque boat, Dr. Huang ordered a small boat to take him ashore and went back to the royal mansion to find a book garden at www.zhaozuiyuan.com. He felt like he had heard something he shouldn't have heard tonight, so he had to go back to the palace to avoid the wind. As the crowd dispersed in the hall, Sun Hong looked at the middle-aged man who had been silent all along behind him. "How about it?" The middle-aged man pondered for a moment and said, "If he hasn't hidden his strength, I'll be 2 or 8. If he has already broken through, I'll be dead or alive. I heard that his greatest skill is a martial arts skill called Red Flame Divine Palm, which is extremely powerful and can even melt a copper bell that is about an inch thick in an instant." Chen Xiao, who was born in the middle stage, was completely incapacitated by a palm strike. Moreover, the descendants of these hidden sects will definitely have a lot of trump cards on their bodies. Unless they are the immortal masters in the sect, they will have full confidence. I suggest not to fight him until absolutely necessary. Seeing the man say this, Sun Hong held his breath and exhaled. "Okay, let's just spend money to buy some peace. However, this person is so greedy and not shy away from women. Perhaps in the future, they can take the opportunity to win in." Can he really persuade Zhou Bai's iron wood? The middle-aged man asked again. We don't have much time. Sun Hong sneered and said, Zhou Bai is a person who values love and righteousness over life and death, and can be considered a precious promise. Master Yu once saved his life with great kindness. If this is the price, unless Zhou Baizhen has sufficient evidence, he will definitely let go. That's good. With this ship of weapons, it will be much more convenient for uprisings in the south. Yeah, we've been lurking for many years, isn't it just for today? The two of them exchanged a glance and walked into the shadows, leaving the painted boat together. So the secret in the painted boat quietly dissipated with the night, and it began to drift quietly on the Changning River. Only the swaying lanterns on the boat adorned the quiet night.